I'm extremely concerned about the proposed merger between Comcast and NBC Universal. Media consolidation matters in a really fundamental way. I watch television for entertainment, but I also get a lot of my information there too. So when the same company owns the programming and runs the pipes that bring us the programming, I think we have a problem. I'm interested in the ways that the Supreme Court affects the information that you and I get when we turn on the TV or read the newspaper. 60 years ago, in United States v. Associated Press, the Supreme Court found that the First Amendment supported aggressive antitrust enforcement. Justice Black wrote, this is a quote, "The First Amendment, far from providing an argument against application of the Sherman Act, here provides powerful reasons to the contrary." He then continued, "Freedom to publish is guaranteed by the Constitution, but freedom to combine to keep others from publishing is not." When I read Black's opinion, I think immediately of Comcast and NBC Universal. Comcast is already extremely powerful. It's the nation's largest cable operator and also the largest home internet service provider. If it owned both the pipes and the programming, it would have the ultimate ability to keep others from publishing. It could just choose to favor its own programming over programming that other companies produce, and withhold its own programming or charge more for it and drive up Minnesotans' cable bills. To make matters worse to me, if Comcast and NBC merge, I worry that AT&T and Verizon are going to decide that, well, they have to buy ABC or CBS to compete. And that will mean there'll be less independent programming, fewer voices, and a smaller marketplace of ideas. That's a First Amendment problem. It's also an antitrust problem. So, General Kagan, here's my first question. Do you agree with Justice Black that freedom to publish is guaranteed by the Constitution, but freedom to combine to keep others from publishing is not?
Senator Franken, first off, let me say that I think that Comcast merger is under review by the Department of Justice at the current moment, and so that I want to steer well clear.
I'm not asking you about it specifically.
Yes, I mean the First Amendment does not provide a general defense, I think, to the antitrust laws. I'm not saying that in any particular case First Amendment principles might not be relevant, but in general, the antitrust laws are the antitrust laws, and they apply to all companies.
Okay, let me talk about online.
Talk about
speech that's online, over the internet, and over the airways, or over cable. Many of the pipes that carry speech are in the hands of corporations, whether those corporations are cable companies or internet service providers. And I brought this up with then Judge Sotomayor at last year's hearing. I asked her about net neutrality, and she agreed that there is a First Amendment interest in ensuring that the internet stays open and accessible, protected from corporate interference. I'd like to ask you a variation on that question now, applying it to the merger context. Let me start with a pretty simple question. Do you believe that the First Amendment helps to promote diverse public voices and opinions?
One of the purposes of the First Amendment is to ensure a public sphere in which all kinds of different opinions and views and thoughts can be expressed, and we can learn from all of them.
And would you agree that the First Amendment governs actions or behavior by the federal government?
Of course, the First Amendment governs actions and behaviors by the federal government as well as by the states.
Okay, so the First Amendment helps to promote diverse speech, and it governs governmental actions. In a merger case, the government is the one making the decision to allow two companies to merge. Given all of this, do you believe that the First Amendment could inform how the government looks at media antitrust cases?
Senator Franken, I guess you could be thinking about that as a kind of policy matter as to whether the authorities that are responsible for approving mergers and such ought to take into account so-called, First Amendment values, not the and I think I would defer to people who know a lot more about antitrust policy than I do on that. So I guess that's what I'd say.